Hey guys, cool blown way back. I'm Rick.
I'm Maggie.
And we are here with Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex second gig. Where last time we got another featured episode for a character.
Yeah, I'd say it's standalone, but I don't think they're calling it a standalone episode this season, so it was really good. It was, it just reminded me of so many classic sort of war.
Enemy at the Gates.
Kind of like the artistic war movies where it's just two people that are don't meet the entire movie, but they're connected to each other's brains intimately the whole time.
Sure. Yeah. So not only did we see Saito's past, but we also saw how he joined up with the Major. Mm-hmm. Who
joined.
was already...
He was claimed.
With Bato at the time.
Bato was a little boy.
Yes. I definitely want to see more of that. More of that.
Do you think,
Major... Sorry.
Do you think we'll see Bato's, backstory? We've seen, we've gotten sprinkles of it, but do you think we'll see, a real Bato backstory? Do you think he just,
I hope so.
Stumbled into the situation, kind of like what we saw last episode, where he was just assigned?
I don't know. I'm sure we'll see more. Although there's not a whole lot left. So we'll see. But the Major defeated Saito and is the reason he lost his eye. And I wonder if we will get another such episode or if we are going to go back to the individual 11 and that business.
Didn't they mention that he was, on the last season, didn't they mention that he, after Togasa, he was the most human of all of them?
I can't remember.
But he was even more human back then, so that's
true.
Extra impressive.
That's true. All right, let's see what this episode has in store. You sad?
I mean, it had a couple of tearjerker moments, kind of.
Yeah. Whew. Tachikoma episodes feel like philosophy lectures. I have trouble keeping up.
I love it.
No, it's pretty great. I think I got most of it.
Yeah. I got the main points. The points that might return. Because I always feel like with these episodes, I mean, they're great for, enveloping us in the world and in the characters and the story and such. But I feel like in order to be true to the show, there's got to be a theme or one thing new in these episodes, even if they're with the same old characters and things that we've seen before. There's got to be something new that the show needs to teach us in order for what happens in the end to completely make sense and to be a logical conclusion.
I feel like it's kind of like the Frogware Sherlock Holmes games, a few of them.
The Frogware?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Frogware.
Where you take points throughout and do quizzes to make sure you've been paying attention.
Yeah.
And I feel like this does quizzes to make sure you're asking the right questions.
Kind of.
We're thinking about things in the right way.
To control the conversation.
We did get at the very beginning of the episode, we got a tiny bit on the individual 11. And then it just kind of cascaded from there about the Tachikomas and individuality. But they all had similar backgrounds. They all had a high level of prosthetics. And there's at least 20,000 people around the world or Japan who are carrying the virus. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about that. Probably just Japan.
Probably.
Because there seems to be I don't know. There seems to be cyber controls on where normal people kind of, surf the net sort of thing. So if you're in the United States, you probably, surf United States stuff.
Yeah.
Mostly.
But it was interesting how the Tachikomas were talking about the moment an individualist joins a group, are they still an individualist? Mm-hmm. Can there be an individual 11? Is that a paradox? Or can that actually exist?
If the 11 people come to the same decision separately, But then that sounds a lot like the the complex from last season.
Yeah.
Where it's like multiple people basically coming to the same conclusion.
And, if the object is to sway others to your way, then, like, you have to have influence. In order to have influence, you have to have numbers. Like, the more numbers you add, the less individual it becomes. In a way, right?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe it's still individual, but that individual becomes more macro. Like what the Tachikomas were talking about. How if decisions are made basically on a micro scale or a macro scale. And the net forms a subconscious mind of the general consensus. And the mind and bodies of all of these people are already separated. They just haven't noticed.
No, it's really interesting. Like, I'm pretty sure this show came out... If it didn't come out before Twitter, it came out before, like, Twitter was what it is today. Like, just... Like, Twitter is a very real visualization of that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Of, like...
I mean, it still suffers from the issue of, like... the people you want to listen to will have your same ideas, and you're in an echo chamber, basically. Like, I don't know if there's a way of being exposed to the full breadth of opinion on the internet without probably becoming very angry.
I don't know. Like, you certainly get, like, what you follow and the topics that you look at on Twitter, like, is what gets pushed to you. But you do see other things, and you certainly can see comments on those things of differing opinions.
Yeah, that's true.
It just seems like because the internet, it kind of could do either, right? Like, it could increase individuality because everyone can have their say on the internet, right? Whereas if you go back in time, like, when in the Western world, when whatever book was published or, like, allowed was dictated by, like, the Catholic Church, or the Protestants or whatever. So, like, there's a very narrow say that is going out and being disseminated.
Mm-hmm. Or it can do the opposite, where you go out into the internet and you find like-minded people and you all connect and you become these little islands.
Yeah, these islands that
can be,
are almost entities of their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can lead to actions or thoughts that would never have existed without them, if that makes sense. Like, everyone in them, had they not joined it, would not have done or said or thought this thing. But because now they are in it, they do, if that makes sense.
Do you think that learning and understanding how and being, like, well taught and practiced enough to have a good argument, like, not one where you're, making straw man arguments or, like, all that sort of stuff that make false arguments, basically, but, like, a really good argument with another person about the positive and negative of a certain situation, do you think that could be one of the most detrimental effects of what we're not using the internet for? Because it seems like what's lacking is the exchange of information across, like, general ideologies like that. So if you have groups together, and you're not having very much crossover of people between those groups, like switching sides or whatever, or switching islands, then how are we actually getting a collective, like, understanding and almost consciousness if everything's working separately? Like, is that actually slowing us down, kind of?
I mean, I think it's way worse otherwise, right? Like, if you don't have that and you grew up in a conservative Christian town, like, that is all you get, and there's nothing else unless you move from that place, right? It's like the internet, you can, if you want to go look, find other things.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, at schools and the libraries, like, they choose what books are in the classroom, and they choose what books are in the library, like, before the internet or whatever. Like, they choose what's taught in the schools. And so, like, then you just, there's no alternative.
Well, there's no really way of, like, finding unbiased material. You just have to have an exposure to enough material with enough biases that gives you a little bit wider field of view. But
I mean, I think the internet allows that in a much greater way than has ever existed before.
I just also wonder if, like, can you imagine how the world, like, there have been, like, technological, like, achievements and such just within the last couple hundred years that have pushed us forward crazy amounts. But at the loss, I feel, of such, like, cultural changes that, like, there's things that's just lost. Like, there's peoples that are just lost. Like, I wonder if it's going to kind of be the same with the internet, where are we dealing with kind of like a...
I mean, there's a thin line of, like, what culture is and, like, its benefits and negatives, right? Because, like, culture can also just be traditions.
True.
And traditions are to keep things the way they are.
But culture can also mean approaching problems in different ways with different priorities. So one culture might prioritize, like, technological advancement, exploration, that sort of thing. Another culture might focus on being less detrimental to their environment.
I think that certainly still exists. Like, there's certainly... I mean, every country isn't at the same level of development in the world.
Definitely not.
And even those that are have different focuses, I would say, for the most part. Like, not every developed country is putting things into space.
No.
Right?
Definitely not. But if you back up from that and imagine where they talked about, like, people coming to the same conclusions or even discovering the same amazing things at roughly the same time period, just at different places. Is that because of lack of connection with communication that could have been solved with the internet and sharing of information? Or was that just two natural places, like, just growing? And are we taking that away with a more connected sphere?
I think we're taking it away. Like, I think it is intriguing to think of the idea where, like, cultures now are all geographically based for the most part, right? I mean, there's also religion can play an effect on that, and that can travel across different borders, but still usually is strong in one region or another. But in an age of globalization, like, these online societies that we become a part of, like, that might be the new culture, right? Like, it is no longer as dependent upon where you're living.
It's what games you play or what
it's what section of the internet that you hang out in.
Are you PC gamer? Are you Xbox or Sony or what?
Yeah, like, will there ever be a time that the people physically living in Japan, like, that culture is not taken, but, like, now the people who eat that sort of food are the people who watched anime a lot. And, like, that's people all over the world. And now the people living in Japan, that's a much different thing that they're doing.
Because they've continued to, like, kind of evolve on a local scale, and yet the culture of their anime and such is being thrown out to the world and is kind of having these upstarts of, like, copycat sort of things. So I'll be honest, if there's anything to take away from anime, it's the freaking amazing food.
I feel like we have strayed from the episode slightly. So, Asuda basically was the father of the Tachikoma.
Yeah. He wanted to leave his fingerprint, basically, on the Tachikoma because he wanted recognition.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted recognition publicly for what he did and how amazing it is. But because he was working for the government, like a lot of people are working for corporations. If you work for a corporation, what you make, no matter how amazing, is owned by that corporation.
Yeah.
And so on. So,
he wanted freedom.
He lost his freedom because he was betraying his company, basically. And
it's something else
the rich people.
The internet has afforded as well, I feel like, in a lot of ways, is allowing individuals more control over their art. Like, you know, before, if you were a writer, you'd have to go through a publishing company and, like, sell the rights, at least partially, to your stories or whatever to get them out to the world. But now you can publish that yourself on the internet. Like, indie game development is the highest it's ever been.
Yeah, I was just seeing how there was a game announced that was like just this one dude in Poland, mostly, and then he got, like, you know, help basically to just put it out kind of thing, but he did most of it, and it's like, oh, those games are always, like, the most exciting because it's, I don't know, it just seems more pure.
Yeah, but, like, the games industry is trending both ways simultaneously, right? Like, the big games are getting bigger and bigger and more costly than ever, and more people involved, and, like, it's going to be its own, like, cyberpunk corporations or countries' future. But on the other end of things, you have, people like Dust and Elysian Tale. It's made by one guy. Yeah,
drew everything himself, where a single person can have all those skills and put them together and actually reap the rewards of it.
Yeah, and retain the ownership.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. And Tachikomas are programmed in a way where they can retain their individuality despite being
up on a satellite,
up in the cloud. But that idea of, like, looking down upon yourself is an interesting one. I've had that sensation while meditating before, of, like, seeing yourself separate from yourself, looking down.
Yeah, I always thought you were just, I thought that was bullshit. For forever. Meditation doesn't exist. That was a rude awakening. So that's the reason why they are definitely not giving the Tachikomas natural oil, because it's actually not affecting, it wouldn't affect them even if you gave the bodies down on Earth natural oil, because the chips are up in satellite.
I think so, yeah. One thing I didn't understand in this episode was, like, where are their chips? Got it. Okay.
I think
that makes sense. So there's nothing locally stored then. They're just streaming it.
I think so.
Basically.
That would be this. I mean, I haven't heard of any satellites getting knocked down, but that would seem to be the safest place you could keep them.
Makes sense.
And especially.
And in their case, then, like, Ghost and the Shell are very different, like, very distinct and separated for them. I wonder if, like, humanity will ever get to that point where we're just, I mean, in this you have it right where someone is remote controlling a body.
Yeah.
It's like, if you can keep the brain away and safe, it's like backing yourself up in like paranoia or eclipse phase.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you can keep this safe, then the body can go do whatever, go be dangerous, and you can always restore.
Yeah, as long as you're within like Wi-Fi range or something. You can't lose it. Find my body, iPhone.
All right, do you have anything else?
I thought that the talk with Asuda and the Tachikoma was really sweet. And I almost wondered if he would have like kind of a slight change of heart when they brought the Tachikoma, like specifically if that was why.
Sure, like he's abandoning his children.
Kind of, yeah. Or that maybe just having them know who he is and what he did would make it a little bit easier for him. Like, I understand the whole, like, not getting the recognition for your hard work that you think is deserved. But it's like, what was his true goal? Like,
yeah, was it name value or was it money?
Yeah, because it seemed like he was getting pretty much the monetary support for anything for his work.
Yeah, but not like his personal life necessarily.
If the guy was ready to like pack up 2 suitcases and leave, I don't know what sort of personal life he had. 2 suitcases.
I mean, he didn't want to cause suspicion either. He probably had to do it quickly. I don't know.
Didn't want to cause suspicion. Set off a bomb.
Well, but like, he couldn't have mailed stuff ahead of time. Like, someone might have found that out. I don't know. That seems very reasonable to me. Plus, with all of his stuff, like,
I'm just saying it probably doesn't have a family.
He would have sold stuff he could get the family later, maybe. Once he's in the country or whatever, the government would have had a very tough time lawfully stopping his family from leaving, I think. Or
when the governments make the laws, Rick.
Or his family.
You're saying that they can't.
Might have already left before him. We don't know. You're just assuming. It did remind me, though, of like the creator of Tetris, who,
yeah,
like his name is out there, but he was working for the Russian government in a department when he made Tetris. So like he didn't get any money from that other than his salary for working for the government.
Yeah,
and that's one of the best-selling video games of all time. I don't know what the licensing for it like is now. If all that still is negotiated from the Russian government, like today's Russian government wasn't even around back then. I wonder
how did the revolution affect everything.
I know it's called the Tetris Company, but like I don't know who owns that necessarily.
I don't know. That'd be fascinating to find out.
I need to find out. There's a really good story on the whole thing.
'Cause what are governments but just
in
corporations?
Game Over, Press Start to Continue, a book.
Yeah, that was a good book.
It is a good one.
If anybody has an opportunity to read or listen to that, Press Start to Continue. That's the history of Nintendo thing that you read. Yeah, that was so good.
I assume there's an audiobook. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure because you just read it to me. It was wonderful. I suggest it to everyone.
All right, that's going to do it for now. We got some Tachikoma backstory. We'll see what we get next time. Thank you guys for watching our reaction to Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex second gig. Can't wait to see what's next. If you can't wait to see us see what's next, you can go over to patreon.com/blindwave where you can see the next 4 reactions right now to this and so much more. Thanks guys, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.